Sunlight spilled into the bedroom that morning, cutting through the half-open blinds in skinny, golden streaks. The spot next to me in bed felt like ice. That hit me first thing. I stretched out a hand, figuring I'd feel her warmth, expecting her to be right there. But my fingers just brushed across cold, empty sheets. "Ethan," I croaked, my throat scratchy from sleep. Nothing came back, no sound, no answer. I propped myself up, shoving the blankets off me. A weird feeling started creeping in. The air around me hung too quiet, too lifeless. My heart started thumping hard, like a drumbeat of worry, as I swung my legs off the bed and shuffled toward the bathroom. Nobody there. I wandered through the house, each step dragging slower than the one before. The closet door was swung wide, showing off empty spots where her stuff used to hang. Those work boots of hers, always parked by the front door, they'd vanished. The dresser top, usually a mess with her watch, wallet, and keys, sat stark naked. A cold shiver crawled up my back as it sank in. She wasn't here, Ethan was gone. Not just stepped out for work. Not grabbing a quick coffee. Not running to the store. Gone for real. My breath caught sharp in my chest. I bolted for my phone, hands shaking as I fumbled to unlock it. No texts waiting. No missed calls lighting up the screen. I punched in her number. It went straight to voicemail. My eyes zipped around the house, hunting for anything, a scribbled note, a hint, something to explain this. But I came up empty. No heads up. No reasons left behind. Just this big, heavy quiet. Let's rewind a bit, though, to that night when everything flipped upside down. Stone Ridge Pub was this old joint, soaked in the smell of worn wood, cracked leather, and greasy fries floating through the air. It wasn't some high-class spot, but it was steady, like the crew of guys who'd pile in after a long day. I was Ethan Hayes, posted up in our regular booth near the back, cradling a chilly Jameson Holt, beads of water dripping onto the scratched-up table. I punched the clock at Stonefield Works, a tiring gig, sure, but it kept the bills paid, and I'd been at it almost 10 years. Nothing flashy, just solid, and after a shift, me and the boys knew Stoneridge was the place to kick back. Liam, my closest buddy from work, leaned in with a big grin, waving his hands as he spun a yarn about the jumpy new kid on the crew. "I'm telling you, the poor guy nearly keeled over when Sullivan hauled him into the office," he said. Liam cracked up, shaking his head. Looked like he was ready to spill his guts about stuff he didn't even do. The table roared with laughs, me too. It felt good to unwind, to be somewhere simple and easy. I took a slow pull from my beer, letting that sharp hoppy taste wash away the day's grind. I was about to toss in my 2 cents when something shifted, a funny, nagging vibe I couldn't shake. My eyes drifted across the bar, and there she was, my wife, tucked in a shadowy booth, laughing, her fingers curled around a glass of red wine. She looked happy, but not because of me. My grip tightened on the bottle as I clocked the guy next to her. Way too close. His arm was slung lazy-like across the booth's backrest. He leaned toward her, all cozy and sure of himself, like they'd done this before. Then, like the world wanted to twist the knife deeper, she tilted in and kissed him. Not some quick peck. Nothing you could brush off. A kiss loaded with history. Secrets. A punch to the gut. Something broke inside me right then. The bar kept buzzing, guys laughing, chatter rolling, a football game droning on the TV over the counter. But in my head, dead silence. A loud, crushing quiet that swallowed everything whole. My world tipped sideways. Liam was still yapping, chuckling at his own story, totally clueless that my life had just blown apart in one heartbeat. I didn't budge, though. Didn't flinch. Barely breathed. Just sat there, eyes locked, watching the ugly truth play out like a bad punchline. My wife was stepping out on me, and she didn't even know I was there. Slow and steady, I set my beer down. The wet ring from the bottle marked the wood, a little nothing stain. Kind of like this moment might be someday. I dug into my pocket, yanked out my wallet, and dropped a couple bucks next to the drink. Then, without a word, without looking back, I got up and walked out of Stoneridge. The night air slammed into me, cold as hell, cutting sharp against the heat roaring in my chest. My boots hit the pavement steady, no rush, just one step after another. I didn't have a clue where I was headed, but one thing was crystal clear. Life wasn't ever gonna be the same. That night after Stoneridge, sleep wasn't happening. I sprawled out in bed, staring holes into the ceiling. What I'd seen sat on my chest like a slow, choking weight. My brain kept looping it, the way her fingers danced on that wine glass, how her head tilted when she laughed, the easy way she leaned into that guy. That kiss. Come morning, there was no dodging it. No room left to kid myself. She'd cheated. Now I just needed to figure out how deep it ran. I'm not the type to fly off the handle, never have been. I'm careful, take my time, the kind of guy who thinks knowing the facts gives you the upper hand. So instead of blowing up, yelling, or begging for answers she'd just twist anyway, I played it smart. I went digging for the truth. And that meant calling in someone who could track it down. Oliver Grant wasn't what I pictured. I'd always imagined private eyes as grizzled old dudes in trench coats, puffing smokes in dingy rooms. But Grant? Late 40s, sharp dresser but not over the top, with gray eyes that didn't miss a thing. His office was a little nook downtown, smelling like dusty books and fresh brewed coffee. "You're after proof," Grant said after I spilled what I suspected. "But let's be real, you already feel it in your gut." I let out a slow breath through my nose. "I need it solid," I told him. Grant gave a quick nod, lacing his fingers together. "All right then. Standard deals got surveillance, pics, video, reports with timestamps," he said. "Phone records too, if it comes to that. Quiet. Clean. No mess. How long's it gonna take?" He shrugged. "Depends on how sloppy she is. A week, maybe 2. If she's careful, could stretch to a month." He leaned in closer. "But listen, Mr. Hayes, if you're sitting here with me, you're already past patching this thing up. You're not here chasing explanations," Grant said. "You're here to wrap this up proper." I locked eyes with him for a good stretch, then just gave a slow nod. "Dig up every damn thing you can," I told him. The days after that dragged on like some kind of cruel, endless slog. I kept clocking in at work, acting like everything was fine and dandy. Like I didn't have a clue what was going on behind my back. Every night, I'd sit there at the dinner table, staring across at her, watching that smile of hers, listening to her ramble about her day. And every time my phone lit up with a text from Grant, I could feel the real story inching closer. Then one night, bam, the first chunk of proof landed. Just one picture. I opened that message, and my chest squeezed tight as I glared at the screen. There she was, my wife. Same guy from the bar. Different spot this time, some fancy joint called the Forge across town. They were cozied up, leaning in close, sharing this vibe that you couldn't mistake for anything else. Another text popped in right after. Friday, 8 p.m., the Forge restaurant. I set my phone down real careful, hands steady as a rock. This wasn't some slip-up. No mix-up I could shrug off. This was on purpose. This was solid. And it wasn't done yet. Grant kept at it, the investigation stretching out over weeks. Guy was like a machine, sharp, cold-blooded efficient. Every couple days, he'd send me more scraps of the mess. Pictures, times, places. A hotel reservation under a fake name. Credit card bills showing stuff I'd never seen before, charges that didn't line up with our life. Sleep stopped coming easy. Food didn't sit right anymore. I still hadn't said a word to her. Not yet. I was holding out for the whole damn pile. Every last shred. Then Grant dropped off the envelope, and I knew the waiting game was up. Back at his office, I sat there with that folder staring me down. My hands pressed flat on the desk, palms sweaty. I already had the gist of what was in there. But guessing it and seeing it laid out? Two different beasts. I cracked it open slow. First page was a typed-up rundown, names, dates, spots. A whole roadmap of her double-crossing. Next came the photos. Some were tame, her and that guy at a cafe, strolling side by side, hands grazing. Others hit harder. Closer. No way to deny what I was looking at. Last thing in there was a USB stick. Didn't even need to play it to know what I'd see. I leaned back, the air feeling thick, like it was pressing down on me. This was it. The hard evidence. No dodging it now. The marriage was toast. She just didn't know it yet. And when she figured it out, it wouldn't be 'cause I hollered or threw a fit. Wouldn't be 'cause I scrapped it out with her. It'd be 'cause I walked away, quiet as a shadow. Not a word. Not a footprint. 'Cause I'm no sucker, that's for damn sure. I'm the guy who bides his time. And now, with all the cards in my hand, it was go time. I've always been the type to plan things out, never jumping the gun. Never made a move without sizing up every angle first. That's how I climbed the ladder at Stonefield Works, how I kept our money straight all these years, how I held it together even after catching her cheating. Now, that same slow and steady game let me line up my exit without her sniffing out a thing. By the time she rolled out of bed, I'd be a ghost. No heads up. No little note on the counter. No, here's why. Just gone. For weeks, I'd been wiping myself out of our life, piece by quiet piece. Made sure every duck was in a row before I'd bounce for good that morning. Bank accounts. Split clean. My cut of the savings was tucked safe in a new account, just mine. Joint cards were shut down, and all the shared bills got flipped to her name. Divorce papers were locked and loaded. My lawyer had them airtight, no wiggle room, no way for her to fight back. They'd hit her doorstep later that morning, after I was already dust in the wind. My resignation was set to ping my boss at 7 a.m. sharp. Stonefield would keep on trucking without me, just like I'd roll on without them. I'd scored a new apartment, nothing fancy, just a stopgap spot in some other city where nobody knew my face, where she'd never track me down. Even had a new gig lined up, starting in a few weeks. Every detail was nailed down. Every loose thread knotted off. By the time the sun peeked up, Ethan Hayes wouldn't be part of this world anymore. It was 4 a.m. when I woke up. Well, woke up is generous, 'cause sleep was barely a thing. I sat up, soaking in the quiet. All I could hear was her breathing, slow and steady, not a care in the world. She had no clue that in a couple hours, her whole life was gonna flip upside down. I slid out of bed real careful, moving through the house like a whisper. Suitcase and duffel were packed tight, just the basics. Clothes, papers, a couple things that still meant something to me. The rest? She could keep it. Let her stew in the wreckage she made. I paused in the bedroom doorway, eyeballing her sleeping there. Few months back, I might have felt a pang, sadness, maybe some regret. Hell, maybe even a little guilt. Now. Zilch. My wedding ring was sitting on the kitchen counter where I'd left it last night. Hadn't worn that thing in weeks, not since I saw her with him. Just a dead chunk of metal now, cold and pointless. The house still carried that faint whiff of lavender and coffee from last night. Used to feel like home. Now it was just another piece of the lie. I let out a slow breath, hiked my bag strap up my shoulder. No waffling. No double takes. Didn't even glance back. I grabbed the front door, twisted the knob, and stepped out into the chilly morning air. It clicked shut behind me, locking the past away for good. By 5:30 a.m., I was in the driver's seat, cruising down a deserted highway, watching the city fade smaller and smaller in my rearview. By the time she stirred, I was already a memory she couldn't touch. Her morning kicked off like usual. She stretched out lazy in bed, reaching over for me like always. But the sheets were frigid. Her hand swiped through nothing but empty space. She sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes. The room sat too still, too hushed. I'd always head out early for work, sure, but never like this, no noise at all. Usually, she'd catch the soft hiss of the shower, the little clatter of my mug on the counter, the rustle of my shirt as I got ready. This time, dead air. She swung her legs over the edge, bare feet hitting the cold wood floor. Something weird started twisting up in her gut, off, wrong somehow. I shuffled toward the bathroom, but it was a ghost town in there. I peeked into the closet next, half of it was just empty space staring back at me. My breath snagged in my chest as I stumbled back, my eyes bouncing around the room like a pinball. I spun toward the dresser, his watch, that thing he always left sitting on top, wasn't there. His wallet? Missing too. Those boots he'd park by the door, the jacket and keys he'd chuck on the living room chair, all gone. My heartbeat thumped loud in my ears, like a drumline gone wild. I snatched my phone off the nightstand, fingers tripping over themselves as I swiped it open. Nothing, no texts, no missed calls. I punched in his number. It rang once, then bam, straight to voicemail. Ethan, hey, where you at? Hit me back, I said, my voice wobbling a little, though I tried to shove the worry down. Maybe he bolted early for some meeting, I told myself. Maybe his phone's just dead. I kept feeding myself those lines, but deep down, this gnawing feeling whispered it wasn't that simple. Something was off, way off. I bolted downstairs, tearing through every room, swinging doors wide, hunting for any trace of him. The kitchen looked like nobody'd touched it. Coffee maker sat cold, counter spotless. He never skipped brewing a pot, ever. I yanked the front door open and stepped out. His car. Nowhere in sight. I darted back in, hitting his number again. Voicemail. Tried again, same deal. My hands were shaking now as I scrolled my contacts and rang up his office. Second ring, the receptionist picked up. Hey, it's Sophia Hayes, can I talk to Ethan? A beat of silence. Sorry, Mrs. Hayes, Ethan quit a few days back, she said. The floor dropped out from under me. Wait, what? I gripped the phone harder. That's gotta be a mistake. You sure? Yeah, yesterday was his last day, she confirmed. I stood there, stuck, barely catching her asking if I was all right. He'd quit. And didn't tell me. The phone nearly slid out of my hand. I hung up and dialed Liam, his work buddy, right away. It rang forever before he finally answered. Hey, Sophia, he said, all chill-like. Where's Ethan at? I cut straight to it, no small talk. He paused. I don't really know, he mumbled. You work with him, you've gotta have something. Honest, he didn't say much, just that he was moving on, Liam said. Moving on where? I snapped. Dead air hung between us for a stretch. Wish I could tell ya, he finally said, quieter now. I clicked off before he could keep going. I started calling everyone, his other pals, his folks. Nobody had a damn thing to say. Some sounded thrown off, others dodged me like I was bad news. Panic clawed up my chest, turning into this heavy, choking mess. Ethan wasn't at work. He wasn't picking up. He wasn't anywhere I could find. I ran to his office space, tearing open drawers, digging through papers. Nothing, just empty slots. His files, that pen he loved, the book he kept on his desk, all gone. I checked the closet again, shoving clothes aside, but it was just bare hangers swinging. No shoes where his used to sit. No trace of his smell on his side of the bed. Then it slammed into me like a truck. He didn't just step out for the day. He'd ditched me, full stop. My legs wobbled, and I grabbed the dresser to keep from hitting the floor. I snatched my phone and tried his number again, breathing all ragged, heart hammering. Voicemail. Tears stung my eyes. "Ethan, please," I whispered into it, "just call me, tell me where you're at." Waited for the beep, nothing came. Just silence. Tried again, voicemail. Again, same thing. A sob bubbled up, but I choked it back down. Couldn't lose it yet. I hauled myself downstairs, brain spinning like a top. Maybe I'd missed something, a note, an email, some hint about why my husband pulled a disappearing act overnight. But the house was a blank slate. No breadcrumbs, no "see you laters." Just this loud, empty void where he used to be. Hours ticked by, and the truth settled in heavier, like a load I couldn't shrug off. I plopped on the couch, staring into space, phone sitting useless in my hands. Ethan was gone. And I knew it was on me. My head scrambled for anything, some reason he'd bolt like that. But I already had it figured. I'd gotten sloppy, too cocky with my secrets, too sure I could keep them buried forever. Thought I had all the time in the world. Thought I was running the show. But Ethan? He'd seen right through me. And instead of calling me out, instead of letting me talk my way out of it, he just up and vanished. A cold shiver ran down my back as it hit me. He'd planned this down to the last detail. This wasn't some snap decision. Not a spur-of-the-moment freakout. He'd mapped it out. Waited. Watched me. Got everything ready. Then, when the clock was right, he walked out without a peep. Tears rolled down my face as I buried it in my hands. I'd screwed him over. And he paid me back by wiping himself out of my life. No blowout fights. No final words. Just a shut door and a quiet that's gonna stick with me forever. Meanwhile, Ethan Hayes was out there, cruising down some endless highway, leaving behind the world he used to know. The city where he'd built his whole career. The house we'd called ours. Those streets that used to feel like home base. All of it was in his dust now. A fresh start was waiting up ahead. No backstabbing. No fake stories. No dragging around the wreckage of a marriage that fell apart under all my lies. He didn't glance back. Didn't let regret sneak in. He'd already burned too many nights wrestling with how he felt. Too many weeks peeling himself away from everything he'd bought into. Now, it was time to hit reset. Ohio, Virginia, wasn't anything like where he'd come from. Quiet little spot, nestled in the Silver Crest Mountains foothills, full of twisty roads, coffee joints, and this calm he hadn't tasted in forever. His new place was cozy, a one-bedroom with a balcony over a sleepy street. Not a palace, but it was his. No old shadows hanging around. No bad vibes. Just a blank page to start scribbling on. He landed a job fast at a small engineering outfit, nothing like the big machine he'd left, but that was the point. Slower vibe, no office drama, fit him just right. The folks there were nice enough, but he kept them at arm's length. Wasn't ready to spill his guts or let anybody close yet. His days settled into a groove. I'd gotten into a rhythm, mornings jogging down streets lined with trees, grabbing coffee from this little quiet spot, putting in long hours at the job, then winding down with a book or a stroll around town. Being on my own had this odd kind of comfort, like a soft nudge telling me I'd picked the right path. Still, every now and then, a piece of me wondered if this was it, if I was just meant to roll solo forever. It was a Saturday afternoon when things shifted, down at the local farmer's market. I wasn't hunting for anything special, just killing time, trying to shake off that empty weekend vibe. That's when I spotted her. She was over by a produce stand, eyeballing a bunch of fresh basil, her face all thoughtful-like. Something about how she moved felt easy, and the warm way she grinned at the vendor when she handed over some cash, it caught me. Then she caught me staring. "You gotta try these strawberries," she said, holding up a little basket. "Best in town." I froze for a second, then stepped up. "Yeah, that right?" She nodded. "Every weekend, I'm here, trust me on this," she said. So I grabbed some strawberries. And that's how it kicked off. Clara wasn't like anyone else. Her kindness didn't feel fake, and she had this way of thinking things through without expecting anything back. She taught kids for a living, surrounded by little ones all day, carrying that soft patience of someone who's all in on what they do. She didn't dig into my history. Never pressed me, never poked at the stuff I wasn't ready to spill. And somehow, that made it simple to let her closer. We started hanging out on weekends, long walks around the city, quiet dinners, late-night chats over coffee. With Clara, there wasn't any baggage lurking around. No second-guessing, no holding back, just this clear, steady thing. She was a world apart from the woman I'd walked away from. And for the first time in forever, I let myself feel good. Inside a year, we tied the knot. Nothing big or fancy, just a small deal. Close friends, simple vows under this big old oak tree. No fuss, no tangled up feelings. Just two folks who'd stumbled onto something real. I'd sworn off marriage for good once, figured trust was a bridge I'd never cross again. But Clara flipped that script. She was rock solid, never wavered. Didn't give me a single reason to doubt her, never left me feeling like I was stepping into quicksand. This was a marriage rooted in straight-up truth, not smoke and mirrors. Then Clara hit me with the news, she was pregnant. Something clicked inside me, like this new life just locked into place even tighter. Holding my baby girl for the first time, I saw how far I'd hauled myself. I'd ditched a life full of hurt, pieced myself back together from scratch, found love, a family, a future that didn't feel like a gamble anymore. Staring down at those tiny fingers wrapped around mine, I made a quiet promise, to keep the past in the rearview. To guard this new world I'd built. To finally shake off the shadows that used to dog me. I'd almost forgotten what it was like to check over my shoulder. For months, I'd been living easy, no old baggage weighing me down. Days were work, evenings were Clara, and nights were me rocking my little girl back to sleep. That old life, the cheating, the ache, it felt like somebody else's story. But the past? It's got a knack for sneaking up, no matter how many miles you put between you and it. It was a calm afternoon when it crashed back in. Clara had taken our daughter to see her folks, leaving me solo for the first time in a while. I just stepped out to grab the mail when I clocked a car parked at the curb. Thought it was nothing at first, maybe some lost soul needing directions, or a neighbor's guest. Then she climbed out. Sophia. For a beat, we just stood there, locked in place. She looked different, hair yanked back, face skinnier than I remembered. Rocking a plain blouse and jeans, a far cry from the flashy get-ups she used to love. But her eyes? They threw me, big, shaky, carrying something that almost looked like she was scared. My grip tightened on the mail in my hands. I wasn't ready for this. She took a shaky step my way. "Ethan," she said, voice barely a murmur. I didn't say a word back. She swallowed hard, glancing at the house behind me. "I had to track you down," she said. My gut twisted. Of course she did. I'd scrubbed myself out of her life clean. But Sophia? She never could stand being shut out. Always had to call the shots. Always needed that last say. I let out a slow breath. "How'd you even find me?" She shifted her weight. Wasn't a cakewalk, she admitted. And I believed that. I'd covered my tracks tight, made damn sure she couldn't reach me. But she'd always been stubborn as hell. And now here she was, planted right in front of me like she belonged. "Ethan, please, just a couple minutes," she said. Time was, hearing her beg might have gotten under my skin. Seeing her there, looking all brittle, might have made me hear her out. Not now. Still, I wasn't about to hash this out in the driveway. I flicked my eyes around. Neighbors were already peeking out their windows, nosy as hell. Last thing I needed was a show. I didn't say nothing, just stepped to the side, letting her in. The house was still, that faint coffee smell hanging around. Sophia's eyes roamed, sticking on the framed pictures lining the walls. Snaps of Clara, our girl, a life she'd never touched. I shut the door and crossed my arms. "Spit it out." She turned to me, looking unsure. "I didn't get it. One day you were there, then poof, gone," she said. "That was the whole idea," I shot back, flat as a board. Something flashed in her eyes, hurt, maybe regret, hell, maybe both. "I deserve to know why," she said. I let out a dry laugh, no humor in it. "You deserve to know. Nah, you lost that shot when you stabbed me in the back." She winced but held my stare. "I wasn't thinking straight, Ethan," she said, voice cracking a little. "I screwed up. But you just bailed, no warning, no chance for me to explain," she went on. "There wasn't anything to explain," I cut in. She edged closer. "I still loved you," she said. I huffed, sharp and bitter, tasting acid in my throat. "Nah, Sophia, you didn't. You loved the setup, the cushy life, the easy marriage. If you really loved me, you'd never have pulled what you did." Tears pooled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. She swiped them away fast. "I've been hunting you down for months," she whispered. "Just had to see you, to figure out why you didn't let me fix it." My jaw tightened up hard. "Some stuff just doesn't get patched up," I said. Sophia let out this wobbly breath, like she was barely holding it together. "You hate me, don't you?" she asked. I stopped for a second, rolling that one around in my head. Back in those first few weeks after I'd walked out, yeah, I'd hated her, felt this raw, blazing anger that ate me up inside. But now? "Nah," I said after a beat. "I don't hate you, Sophia. You're just a big zero to me these days." Her face kinda caved in at that, like I'd sucker punched her, but she gave a little nod. I stepped over to the bookshelf and fished out this thick, beat-up manila folder I'd stashed there. Been sitting untouched for months, collecting dust, 'cause I wasn't sure I'd ever have a use for it again. She never expected what I would do next. And that's what I did. Guess that time had come. I turned back, holding it out to her. "You wanna know why I bailed?" Sophia froze for a sec before reaching for it, her fingers shaking just a hair. She stared down at the folder, then flicked her eyes back up to me. "What's this all about?" she said, voice small. I crossed my arms, leaning against the shelf. "The real deal," I told her. She cracked it open slow, and the second her gaze hit that first page, I watched the blood drain right out of her cheeks. It was a picture, her and that guy from the bar. Different night, different spot, but no mistaking what it screamed. The way she tilted into him, his hand parked on her knee, too close, too cozy, no way to spin it innocent. Her breath caught sharp in her throat. She flipped to the next page, hands unsteady. Another shot, a restaurant this time. Her laughing at something he'd said, all lit up like nothing else mattered.